The first step in making a parting-off tool is rough grinding, which is done by pressing the sides of the soft metal tool shank against a bench grinder. Rough grind the tool shank to clean up and increase the work area around the carbide tip so the carbide can be ground more easily later. Do not rough grind the carbide tip. The carbide is ground on a diamond grinder. 2 diamond grinding wheels are normally used. The first wheel is for rough grinding to form the rough dimensions on the carbide. The other wheel is for fine grinding to put on the final finish. All necessary sides of the carbide are first rough ground and then fine ground. The face of the tool should be ground first to prepare good cutting edges on the sides and nose of the tool. This should be done even if no rake angles are required. Place the tool shank in the diamond grinder holder so that the tool face is facing the side of the rough grinding wheel. Lock the tool in place, then set the angles to be ground into the tool face with the 2 adjustment gauges below the tool holder. The top gauge is used to set the cutting angles for the sides and nose of the tool and also for back rakes. The bottom gauge is used to set clearance angles. It is also used to set side rakes. First, loosen the 2 gauges lock levers. Both gauges have a 0-degree mark in the center and degree graduations on each side. Angles are set on either the left or right side of the 0, depending on the direction of the angle and the side of the grinding wheel being used. If there are no side rake angles, the lower gauge is set at 0. If no back rake angle, the upper gauge is also set at 0. Then tighten both gauge lock levers. With the grinding wheels not spinning, move the tool holder to the rough wheel. Slide the holder to position the tool face close to but not touching the side of the wheel. Lock the tool holder in this position. Next, loosen the depth adjustment knob and make the depth adjustment with the knob on the right side of the grinder. The tool should move forward to the base of the carbide tip. Lock the depth adjustment knob and bring the tool holder away from the wheel. Turn on the diamond grinder. Then turn on the coolant with the spigots on the coolant tubes. Adjust the coolant flow to hit the diamond wheel. Move the tool holder back up the wheel. Be sure the coolant hits where the carbide will touch the wheel. Move the tool into the side of the wheel by turning the dial on the left side of the grinder. Bring the tool in slowly to avoid damage. Grind the face of the tool until the dark carbide outer surface has been removed. Bring the tool holder back and shut off the diamond grinder. Unlock the tool holder and slide it over to the fine grinding wheel. Move the tool into the position next to but not touching the fine wheel. Lock the tool holder and adjust the tool for depth. Then bring it away from the wheel. Turn on the diamond grinder, start and adjust the flow of coolant, then bring the tool up to the wheel. Move it against the side of the wheel and fine grind it enough to smooth the surface of the face. To grind the sides and nose of the tool, place the tool in the holder with the face up. These will also be rough ground and then fine ground like the tool face. To grind the right side of the tool, position it on the left side of the grinding wheel. Possible transmission ratios between the headstock and the headstock cam are shown on this gauge located on the headstock rocking lever. The necessary transmission ratio for a new job is normally given in the job layout. To set the ratio on Tornos, first loosen the bolt on the face of the gauge. Then turn the screw on the top of the gauge to bring the gauge slide to the correct setting. At a ratio of 1:1, the headstock travels the same distance as the changes in radius of the headstock cam. At a 2:1 or 3:1 ratio, the headstock will travel a half or a third the distance. A 1:1 ratio is most commonly used. When the ratio is set, retighten the gauge bolt. Bechlers also have a headstock transmission ratio gauge located on the rocking lever to the right of the headstock. The gauge is set at 0 for a 1:1 ratio, at 30 for a 2:1 ratio, and at 40 for a 3:1 ratio. To change the ratio, loosen the lock bolt on the gauge. Then turn the knurled knob at the end of the gauge to the required setting. Tighten the lock bolt. On both machines, each vertical tool also has a transmission ratio gauge located on the top left side of the tool holder. The ratio is set by loosening the gauge lock nut and positioning the gauge slide at the required setting. The lock nut is then retightened. The normal ratio setting is 2:1 for tools 5 and 4. For tool 3, it is normally 1:1. Once set, the transmission ratios for the vertical tools are seldom changed. During setup, some plants will require a rough adjustment to be made on the headstock stop peg before parts are produced. On Tornos, this adjustment is normally made to provide a play of from Install the tools with their nose ends almost flush with the bottom of the tool holder. Lightly tighten the lock screws to keep each tool in place. Be sure each tool is positioned so that the bar stock will rotate against the tool face. All tools should then be centered as shown in Lesson 7. Hand crank the parting off tool holder to the beginning of the parting operation. Extend the bar of stock slightly past the parting off tool. Loosen the tool holder lock screw and position the tool against the bar stock. Tighten all lock screws. With the spindle turning, manually form a sharp center point on the face of the bar stock with the parting tool. Use its centering screw to do this as shown in Lesson 7. When the point is formed, move the tool all the way out of the work area with the radial micrometer. Repeat the centering process for the other tools by hand cranking each one to the beginning of its work position and loosening its lock screw. Then either position the tool against the bar stock and form a new center point as shown, or align the face of the tool with the existing center point on the bar stock as also shown in Lesson 7. After each tool is centered, remove it from the work area with its radial micrometer. Next, all tools must be keyed with the tool line. The tool line corresponds to the distance of the back edge of the parting off tool from the bushing. Each tool is placed at various distances from the tool line. The layout sheet should indicate the distance each tool must be. To key the tools, first hand crank the parting tool to the beginning of its work position. Turn the radial micrometer until the parting tool cuts a clean face on the bar stock. Then key each tool one at a time by opening the collet and removing the bar stock. Hand crank each tool to the start of its work position. Manually extend the parting off tool all the way into the bushing and position the bar stock against it. With the tool's lateral and radial micrometers, position the tool's edge flush against the face of the bar stock, and then with the lateral micrometer, move the tool the required distance from the tool line. Repeat the process for each tool.